And we're live. I know it's what is this? It's like
I'm
Monday,
sorry.
Friday here, but I'm not really sure how the listeners are going to go and feel about that.
We were messing around before we went live, and apparently, since I have a couple pairs of glasses here, I was joking I should join Nick, and I ended up. What would be the derogatory term for that? Six eyes, I guess. I'm not sure.
I guess.
I guess I don't know. I don't
I
know.
just I just wanted to get mine on because we always talk about like video quality.
Mm-hmm.
And I realized that I'm looking at life in like 720 or like standard def, and I had to go
Yeah.
up to HD.
Oh, what a great way to talk about glasses! It's upgrading your video quality of life. Oh my god.
Hey, when we're talking about how to identify profitable customers from day one,
Hey,
HD vision's the way to go.
HD Vision is, hey, happy Friday. Welcome to B2B Power Hour. Nick, it is a joy to have you to be with you today. I was just going to say have you on, and you're another host of this show. So I when you proposed this topic for today, I became immediately excited because there's just been a lot of chatter, at least in my networks recently, about not just, ICP is sort of like a foundation, identifying the right clients and trying to, go after them, but accommodating them in a sales cycle that really makes sense from a business fundamentals. And that's what today's topic is about, identifying those profitable customers from the very first piece of the sales cycle. So I'm just going to let you take it and kick it off, and we'll see where it goes.
All the salespeople listening, you're going to love this. All the marketers, no promises.
Yeah.
This really comes from being in sales. If you don't know who you should be talking to, it is the toughest thing. And so if you don't have a list to work from, or if the company hasn't give you anything to give you guidance, it's really, really tough to get started. And I'm seeing this getting worse as companies are giving less resources. There's less strategy and like a main general that's guiding all of the actions on sales and marketing. Everybody's just kind of working in their own silo, and it's causing more issues as we go on. And so I get a lot of people that come in for sales training, and they're like, yeah, like I can't get this company to engage, and I'm, this and that. And I look at it and I take about 5 seconds. I'm like, why do you want this account?
Yeah.
And I start asking the questions they should have asked before they ever made the call. But even this goes for marketing. If marketing sends over a lead, and I think marketing should be doing this too, not just sales. If they don't fit the ICP, if they don't fit the ideal customer, if they don't match a certain guideline, why are you talking to them? Think of this from a respect standpoint. We have to respect our customers by letting them know if they're not a good customer. Maybe don't say that. But if there's somebody that's better to be working with them, would it not make more sense for you to go and send them their way than trying to go and hoard that deal and provide a bad experience? Because that's not going to get you referrals. That's not going to earn word of mouth. Being honest with them could be so eye-opening, and so they could be so awestruck that they want to tell all their friends.
That reminds me of the when I had my own web design practice, we only did, a certain kind of development. We would only solve certain kinds of problems. And when you run your own shop and you build your own practice, that it's a discipline to say no.
Hard.
And I think some of that gets lost, when companies are at scale, or when there's quotas and targets, and it's more important to hit the quota than it is to hit the ICP. And they'll start saying yes to everyone. And I think you're dead on. It is an issue of respect. If I can't say no to this client, if I'm going to, in the web design world, if I was going to say yes to a client, even though it's not exactly my expertise, or even though I could do 50% of it, but really somebody else is actually the right fit, it is so much better for me to just go and refer them to the right fit. Because first of all, it's good for me. I'm being honest, and people like that trustworthiness. I think it has integrity to the sale. And also, those clients are going to be better off with the other person anyways. And that way you don't have to lose sleep, or really, frankly, lose money trying to get that client in the door.
Absolutely. I actually, the example I used the other day while I was training was when I was in insurance sales. They always taught us 100, 20, 5, and 1. You have to reach out to 100 people to get 20 that are interested, to book 5 meetings, to get 1 sale.
Oof.
Those were your numbers.
Mm-hmm.
I was also 18, 19 in an industry where the average age in the office was like 58. People didn't want to talk to me, not about their life savings, not about their success and their future. So I started going and looking at potential customers that I could work with and the product that I had. And I started to really dive in, like, who needs this and know that they need it, that I don't have to tell them they need it. They already know it's there, but maybe it's not convenient, so they haven't done it yet. And so I stumbled upon disability insurance. And I'm like, oh, well, they know they need it. People that have active lifestyles. I was like, oh, I bet you tradespeople need it the most. So I bought steel toes and a hard hat, and I went job site to job site. And all I did is I got to know people on the sites. I let them know what I did. I built relationships. They knew who I was. And my numbers, I went down. I had to actually stop.
It's a good problem to have, Nick.
But it was only because I tracked my numbers that I knew this. And this is where a lot of people are really struggling, is they don't track their numbers. They don't know what works and what doesn't. And so I had to go stop. I was doing it 5 days a week. I had to go down to twice a week, and I only did 40. And out of the 40 people I talked to, somewhere between 20 and 30 were interested. And of those, 90% of them booked meetings or bought on site. And so I went from 100 approaches down to less than 40, and I was selling 3 to 4 times as much.
Mm-hmm.
So that is what happens when you know what a profitable customer looks like from day one, is that for you, it saves a lot of time. And I compare it to being like the snipers, like picking where they want to go instead of coming out with a machine gun and just or a shotgun and just shooting randomly to see what you can hit.
Totally.
And that's everybody's approach. Well, that approach not only wastes a ton of resources in the process, but it's also like, it takes a long time and it's expensive. It burns out your reps. It gets nowhere. If my quota is 20 meetings a week, why? And I'm sorry, I know if you're a sales rep that you probably you're not comfortable asking this, but where do the metrics come from? Why do you have to hit that? Because if I can do it in 5 meetings where the other person had to do it in 20 meetings, should I be penalized for being more efficient, or should we have that conversation and ask, why did that work where theirs didn't? And I just don't know.
Yeah. And I think even from a marketing approach, I've definitely called the antiquated approach to marketing the shotgun approach before, which is basically just, be everywhere at all times and see what hits. One thing that I've always been concerned about, actually, more than anything, especially on the marketing side, sales, I'm sure actually it may go either way. It could be even more dangerous or it could be less, depending on how the process goes. But you can potentially damage relationships in the marketplace by using a shotgun approach, especially in marketing, because you're literally churning and burning. And
I give a pitch slap right now.
And I got pitch slapped on LinkedIn just the other day. And you know what? If that person had taken the time just to start a conversation, totally different approach, totally different potential response, even if I'm not interested in the eventual product. But from a marketing side, whether that's cold prospecting or whether that's just outbound lead generation or PPC campaigns or content or whatever, if your approach is this churn and burn, shotgun, see whatever we hit, even within some sort of ICP, you can potentially damage those relationships and damage your long-term potential in the market. Because one thing I always think about is from a marketing side, if you're running through 100 names a week or whatever, or you're running ad campaigns to a huge audience, and the certain percentage of them you're doing some email automation follow-up with or some sort of nurture campaign, quote unquote, there's a lot of those names who could be customers who are turned off by your approach. And I think what you're identifying is when you create an ICP, it's not just who the person is or who the potential ideal client is and their firmographics or their position in the company, or even the buying committee, if there's a buying committee and whether you have to deal with that. It's what they expect in the buying experience and what they want in the buying journey, and just meeting that. You're just
Mm-hmm.
trying to sell to them. And one of the best ways to do that is just to meet their expectations and say, here, we'll deliver this for you differently than maybe you deliver to in a previous job or in a different industry, because people are different in different industries and they have different expectations of the buying experience. And chances are, I'm not going to get sold, let's say, a financial services product based on a LinkedIn message, mostly because I don't think that's how most people work anyways, but also that's not how I work. And if I'm in their ICP, they need to understand that a pitch slap isn't going to work.
So I want to challenge us a little bit, just so that we're talking about this from different angles.
Mm-hmm.
So going with the whole saying, like, show don't tell, if they would have done a personalized invitation that was very catered to you, that showed that they did their research by making statements and really important questions, would that have changed that pitch?
Maybe. And I'm sort of a hard person to be sold to, I'll be honest. I'm not maybe a good example, but what I do think should have been included is not a pitch from the get-go.
Well, and that's, you have to earn the right to pitch before you pitch.
Yeah, absolutely.
But this is where the whole thing I'm talking about, like, build your hypothesis,
yeah,
have a case to go and reach out to people to know that they're profitable, and every single question should be picked before you start. But what I see a lot of salespeople do, and marketers, is they don't know, and so they're going into the meeting doing all this work, and they haven't done any of the prerequisite coming into that meeting. Rapport isn't built in the meeting anymore. We don't go play 4 hours of golf. We don't go and, sit at the bar, or unfortunately, we don't go sit at the bar anymore and, like, get to know somebody over a few pints. No, we do 20-minute meetings. But once they get to know you on LinkedIn, once they get to know you through, like, you being a human being and talking to them on the phone, or like through email or whatever method you use, that's how you build that rapport. But it comes from knowing what to ask, knowing what you want to ask long before you go in there, because you may not want to meet with them in the first place because it's not a good fit. But how often do we hear people say, oh yeah, marketing sent me a lead, I reviewed it, and I actually canceled the meeting and actually referred them business because I said it wasn't a good fit?
so unusual.
You booked me 10 meetings. Of those 10, 3 were qualified, so I kept those. And, yeah, Jason, of course. I wish we could play golf too, or get outside and not be stuck in my little hidey hole.
Yep.
But
But that's not how the world works right now. And I think, to your point, a lot of the rapport is actually built. Let's call it rapport, but trust, honestly, is
Yes.
built on the front end when people are doing their own research, their own engagement with your brand. This is the underestimated part of marketing right now, and this is what demand gen generally gets right, is all of that content or value that you're providing on the front end allows people to build trust with you so that you don't necessarily have to go and play 4 hours of golf. It's more asynchronous now. It's on people's own time. They research the brands, the companies that they want to work with. And so from a marketing perspective, that investment is in trust so that you can accelerate your sales cycle later on, basically, with the right qualified opportunities. And yeah, a lot of people don't do that, because it's a lot easier just to say, oh, we'll have a 20-minute meeting and we'll try and pitch them.
Or we'll have a half an hour meeting and you have to build your account list of 1,000 people to start targeting.
Gosh, that just sounds horrible.
But how are you building it? Well, we do this industry. Okay, and what else? Do you go by, like, revenue? Do you go by
Company
like, amount of
size?
yeah.
Yeah.
Why does that matter? Well, and this leads into another thing that I'm seeing is they don't prioritize the right deals at the right times.
Mm.
So what happens is they treat every deal the same, not knowing that the buying committee of an enterprise versus SMB is going to change it. So something is 6 months versus something is 2 months, and something has more buying jobs. So you have to communicate with more buyers. So you have to go and maybe look at asynchronous video, like from Vidyard, or you need to go and do like snippets, or you need to record all your meetings and send it to all the appropriate people. But I wouldn't do that for a small deal because they don't need it.
Right. And it sounds like sales teams aren't encouraged to really think about it's a deal. Sales teams are encouraged to think, oh, it's a deal, let's go after it. And there's not a lot of strategic thought about this one's going to take 6 months and 6 times the effort compared to this small one. So why don't we prioritize the short-term cash flow one that we can nail down in 30 days and continue to work on the 6-month one in the meantime? Is that what basically you're going after?
Yeah, you're
Okay.
layering it. You
Mm-hmm.
know, by the different size of companies how you're doing that approach so you can actually manage the campaign properly. And think of like even like economic development days for you. How often did you talk to a salesperson about account strategy?
Yeah.
But it's not a bad thing. It's just it's
Uh-uh.
something that I just started to realize as I've been talking to more marketers and I've been talking to salespeople from different industries and different size of companies. This is really foreign. When I
Mm-hmm.
started, we got account lists. We built whether it was insurance, we got existing customers and we had to go and do service calls, and half of them were lapsed and they were garbage. But that's another point for another day. The other part is we would look at who was a good customer and why, and we'd build lookalike audiences. Kind of sounds familiar from advertising,
Mm-hmm.
and we would make an account strategy or a territory plan, and we would, back in the road warrior days, jump in the car and we'd go work that territory, and we had a method to the madness. I think we lost the method to the madness because we don't know what a profitable customer looks like, so we're not willing to invest the right amount into accounts because there's just no plan. Because
Well,
why would you want to invest $10,000 on an account if you don't know if it's going to at least make you 10,000 back plus?
mm-hmm.
But most people don't know.
Yeah, and I think what you've pointed to before is when companies and especially sales teams are in survival mode and they're really focused on literally just getting the next deal because that's either what they're incentivized to or that's the plan of attack right now. Those more strategic conversations around account strategy, how to prioritize customers, how to really connect with the right accounts at the right time, those things go by the wayside. Understandably, too. If you're in survival mode and you're trying and your company leader is like, "Oh, we got to organize cash for the next 60 days." Like you're going to take any deal that walks in the door, you're going to say yes and you're going to try and hammer that home. But I think most companies that are out of actual cash survival mode where they have enough ARR or they
Yeah.
both cash flow and ARR, they still run their sales team like they're in survival mode.
Never
And
shift gears
and they
ever.
never shift gears out of it into something that's more thoughtful, more patient, and more informed as to how their clients buy and how to connect with those buyers. Because then they just get stuck going, oh, this guy contacted me today. It could be a $30 million deal and it's going to take 8 months. And then this guy contacted me and it'd be a $600,000 deal. And that's going to take 60 days. But then suddenly all the energy goes after the big white whale. And that's, yeah, deeply confusing to me, but understandable if your sales team is run in this like survival mode.
But it's only confusing if you look at it from the greater,
Well, yeah.
actually, like, actually assess it. But when you're knee deep in it and
Yeah,
you've
it's
never
hard.
actually done, well, you don't know.
Mm-hmm.
You have no method to your madness.
Mm-hmm.
But you were talking about that, and I made me think I was talking to somebody in training this week, and I did my like lurking in the darkness metaphor. I was like, yeah, you know what you want to look for, so you kind of sit there like in the darkness waiting, like as a joke to her, and she's like, well, you know what? I pretty much do that on Facebook anyways. Like I'm always stalking somebody, or like, I might as well put that time into something that's actually useful.
Oh, that's so
So I was
funny.
like, so she's like, yeah, maybe I just do that with my account lists, and I monitor what they do on LinkedIn or on like the right social channels, and I engage with them, and I make myself approachable to go and start those bigger conversations. It's just so funny. Sorry, what? She's
Yeah.
like, well, yeah, like I want to see what my ex is doing, and I want to
Yeah.
go see what this person's doing, and like these, and it's like
So it's
same
basically face
energy.
stalking, but for but for professional relationships. And
But it's more honest than that, though. I
yeah.
think that's the thing I have to make really clear is going back to your talk about like the pitch slap and then somebody
Mhm.
hitting you with that pitch out of the blue and you hard to sell to. But what if you showed buying indications?
Mhm.
What if just before somebody needs your service that they hire a marketing manager, or just before they hire your service they see a drop in ops, or there's something that is an indicator that there's a problem that you can solve?
Well, and similarly, actually, I've had a really good conversation. So just to contrast this, with somebody else that had sort of reached out as a result of content that I had been posting. And the point of the conversation was just to literally extend the conversation. And what she offers as a service would help what you and I do or what we could potentially do. But the point of the conversation was entirely about the content, how it was going, what our different thoughts were on some topics. And we had a fairly extensive conversation for, just basically some sort of outreach. And at a certain point, she had said, well, if let's continue this conversation, here's a link to book on my calendar once I had asked a more specific question. Beautiful. That is amazing. That hit home. I was like, first of all, yes, because I already know you provide value. I know you also can be trusted. You're not just trying to pitch me on something because we had a great conversation together. And it's clear it's not like salesy or whatever. It really is just relationship focused and made me feel good. I was like, oh, I could connect with this person more. And I think to your point, that honest, consistent approach with the kinds of clients that you want to go after, especially out on LinkedIn or any sort of network like that, is extremely valuable. And it's just a different way of approaching the sale.
100%. It changes everything. And that person created an advantage to having a relationship with them.
Mm-hmm.
That's a big difference too.
Exactly. So question for you, because this has sort of popped up in our conversation this morning. How do you think about creating an ICP? And mostly not just from like a database perspective, but how much are sales teams doing like market research on behalf of the ICP as a part of their conversation? How much does marketing feed into it? How would you envision sort of the ideal process to not just create an ICP, but also refine it, especially for companies that may have one, but maybe it's not exactly working?
So this one's hard depending on where you are. If you're a startup and you don't have that much experience with customers, like you don't have a big client list, this will be really tough. I would tell you to go look at competitors and watch who's commenting, watch who's engaging, find signs of people that are customers, or even reach out to them and do interviews. But if you know your customers, this is where you talk to finance and you sit down with finance, sales and marketing, and service ops to figure out who they like working with and why. Who are the best people to serve when it comes to actually fulfilling your promise to customers? On paper, who are the most profitable? Talk about sales and marketing, like who actually moved through the process the best? How long does it take? You might not have all this information, but once you know, you can start watching for it. And then what you do is once you have that basic assessment of where you are, now you start to go prove it. So now you go back out to the market, build a list of about 30 potential customers. I actually really love doing win-loss analysis. And so I'll look at 15 to 20 we recently won, 15 to 20 that we recently lost. And I do an interview, just a genuine interview, because I want to know why. Why did you pick us? Why didn't you pick us? Where was the disconnect? And people, when you're doing it genuinely, they want to help you and they want to be part of that process. And now what you're doing is you're removing all of the assumptions that you had and putting it with something concrete. So now when your salespeople and your marketers are going out, they're using their language and they feel like you're directly connecting to them at such a personal level that it changes the entire conversation. And it reminds me of like old networking where you'd have like, you go to a bar and they'd almost have like that speed networking style where they have all the tables around and you have the guy that does like the drive-by business carding. And then you have the one person, that really connects with you because they only talk to maybe 3 or 4 people, but they got to know you. And so when they call, you pick up their call because they earned it, because you actually feel like there's a connection. Well, this is what's happening now is we're having this connection, but digital, because now a lot of our channels and how we buy, including like myself and everybody I talk to, buys differently. Thanks to COVID, thanks to technology, thanks to being stuck in these beautiful things we call home. And it's changed the way we do things, but we're now seeking connection. We're not seeking content. We're not seeking out things randomly. And so a random cold call with no trigger is lost in all the noise. People don't pay attention to it. They don't care. And it's just the nature of the beast. But Now we do this win-loss analysis. Now we go and do these interviews. Now you have all this information for sales and marketing, and it might even actually change the way ops deliver. And you might even find more margin of things that they didn't want, they didn't care about, or things that added more value that are easy. There's so much low-hanging fruit, yet everybody does this spray and pray, and it just gets nowhere because they haven't done this hard work, this thing that is uncomfortable because you have to actually talk to people.
Mm-hmm.
But it works.
Mm-hmm.
It works really well.
And what I like about that approach too, not just from a win-loss scenario, but thinking about your top customers, let's say 3 to 5, who you really love, that is the way to build a client persona, like, and this is when in a previous world, and this lesson I think applies to the B2B companies that I work with still, but in the previous life when I was doing more consumer facing stuff, a lot of the confusion in the consumer world is, well, how do I know who to go after? Because, B2C is pretty big and they have a lot larger potential audiences. And whenever somebody was a service provider, a contractor, an accountant, although, even the professional service world, I guess, is B2B, but anybody sort of facing the consumers, I would always ask them, well, who are your best clients? And why don't you have more of them? and that helps, or always helped, center them on this idea of, oh, we're supposed to actually go after the people that we like to work with. Which is a really strange thought. But to your point, like sometimes, and what we had discussed previously, sales teams in the B2B world get distracted by the high dollar value deals, even though they may not be the best fit, even though they may not be the best clients, or they're going to be just a pain in the ass from the ops side in order to deliver what's being promised. Whatever it is, centering all of your sales and marketing efforts on this analysis, just starting with who are our best clients and how can we get more of them, is such a foundational strategy, mostly because if they're your best clients, and this is where I want to extend the profitability, if they're your best clients and they really like working with you, you only have to really sell them once. Mm-hmm. And you can retain and grow that account in the long run, and you can become infinitely more profitable just based on retention and growth. And instead of churning through on the front end, on the acquisition side, where marketing and sales is spending all of this money to acquire the customer, and instead you're looking at the long-term customer lifetime value, even if you cap customer lifetime value at 5 years, right? Just over the next 5 years, if you continue to attract and retain more and more of those best clients, even if the deal size themselves is maybe a little smaller than those really big deals, but they're your better clients, and your whole team, your whole company loves really working with them, then in 5 years' time, you're gonna thank yourself for not taking those really big deals that your ops team is gonna hate or your sales team takes 12 months to navigate, because everybody's just gonna lose patience or all the rest of it. Conversely, if those really big deals are your niche, then like go for it. That's also going to fuel your customer lifetime value. But it's important to really focus on the fundamental profitability in the long run of those clients. And the best kind of profitability comes from the clients you love working with and who love working with you. That's just good business, basically.
Only thing I was thinking as you go through that, I worked with a company recently, or was doing an analysis with them, and they worked at a certain size. Mm-hmm. And we started talking about margins and found out they actually weren't making money. So once they had marketed to the accounts, they had pulled them through the sales cycle and then actually worked with them, because they didn't pay any attention to retention and growth, they actually never broke even. Oh. But I would have never guessed it. It didn't look like it. All the touch points, everything was really clean, but it was how they were spending their money. But this is why this is so critical. It seems like such an insignificant little thing, but when I talk to salespeople and I ask them, like, who are you targeting? And they just tell me computer software. Cool. Yep. What else can you tell me about computer software? Who is your best customer? Who is the worst customer? And we start to go and map that out, even just like a simple word map. And it's amazing how that changes. And now you go and start talking to, because especially in bigger companies, you don't talk to everybody every day. You don't know if your account was actually profitable. You don't know what it was like to go and deliver on those promises unless you're a small enough company that you're part of that, or
Mhm.
your company takes a more relationship management approach with your account execs. But it's uncommon now.
Mhm.
And so it guides how you invest. It guides how you approach. It really guides how you show up in the market in so many more ways than people realize. But going back to what you said last week, this also goes into your hiring and firing.
100%.
Like, would it not change how you would hire and how you would scale that company if you knew this versus
Mhm.
not?
Hmm. Well, and I really want to extend a specific thought that you had brought up, which is actually talking with customers gives you language that you can use to talk to other customers. And this is like, I think, a week one soapbox, so it's back, baby. But marketing, the main sin of brand strategists is they create personas based on assumptions and not actual people's real language. And as somebody who's worked with, let's call them fake personas, just basically ideas of people that may or may not exist in the world, and assumptions about their behavior without actually having those behaviors, having not only created them but also designed brand architecture around personas like that, those the main folly I see is it is so easy to actually create good messaging to real people. If you, as the marketer or as the copywriter or as somebody who's engaged in a campaign development, not only if you know the customer specifically, but you know of the customer, like you have that specific information from your sales team or even from your own marketing research as to who this person is, how, what do they do, how do they wake up in the morning, how does their worldview operate, what's really going to resonate with them. The kind of messaging you can roll out is going to be so resonant when you're actually using real people, real ICPs, not all this fake nonsense that brand strategists are famous for doing for, and most marketers are famous for doing for so as well. And the reason that it's a lot easier just to make a bunch of assumptions and to say we target computer software companies between 11 and 50 people because that's what's convenient on LinkedIn. And we haven't really talked to one. Well, the sales team, I guess, is talking to them, but we don't really know what is resonating, what isn't resonating, etc. But if you have that line of communication open and those teams working together, what I can envision is a page rollout, a landing page, basically, for the right kinds of clients at an ABM strategy or even for a generic audience. That just every headline, every piece of content, all the imagery, all the rest of it is just so dead on because that because of those conversations, because sales has been actually talking with clients that you want to work with, and marketing knows what is being said or is participating in those conversations, and then are building messaging around that can really resonate in the marketplace for the front end, top of funnel, I guess, of the sales process. And I see in the comment, Vivian, hi. Yes, not all of us. I agree. not all branding people do fake personas. But in the clients that I've seen, it happens too often, sadly, honestly. Or they just don't have any idea who they're really going after.
I think it was Warren Buffett that originally started writing his annual address to his late wife.
Hmm.
And he always had that. That's how he looked at it, is how he would prove it to her that it was a good investment. So it changed his entire tone, his language, everything. But years ago, I got voluntold that I had to go and write handwritten letters to clients,
Mm-hmm.
and it was just thank you or happy birthday. And it was really interesting how it changed how much I wrote, how long I took to write, and the emotion I put into writing when somebody's name came across my desk that I knew. Could you imagine how good that would feel if every single time you wrote that social media post, every single time you sent that direct message, every time you started looking for people and like inspired that conversation, that you knew them like they were your best friend, that you had somebody you've been talking to for years? It changes everything. And this is where I think a lot of it gets lost, is because how do you know? Like,
Mm-hmm.
if you're talking to a random stranger on the street, you can play the race to commonality, which is a fun game, but only if they're willing to play ball, and
Mm-hmm.
you find something quick that they want to talk about, or else you lose them forever. But that's kind of what we're left with on LinkedIn. That's what we're left with on social, because, and if you don't believe me, go pull up a target account list on Sales Navigator.
Mm-hmm.
Go pull up people that have posted in the past 30 days and look at anybody in management, senior management, or C-suite, and look at how they share content. One of the things that you'll see very way too much is just the blank reshare,
Mm-hmm.
the promo reel. That adds no value. It doesn't add any narrative. We are curators for our audiences. We are curators for the people in our circles, whether they're direct or not. You missed an opportunity to connect. You missed an opportunity to attract a profitable customer. And now you're starting from nothing. And so there's no track. There's nothing to build off of. You're not writing that letter to your best friend. You're not even writing a letter to a stranger. You're writing a letter to somebody with computer software in their title and hoping and praying that it's going to land somewhere that's or like worthwhile. But
And honestly, I think automation encourages that sort of behavior too, because in automation software, you basically create a template and then you spray and pray. And as you and I both don't use automation tools for obvious reasons, but for me, not just because it's more fun for me to actually do the hard work, I feel the payoff more. It also allows me to create those more personalized conversations and those more personalized content to the people that I want to talk to. Because now it's not, to your point of like writing a thank you card. I've also had the distinct pleasure of basically doing something like that before. And if you write the same thank you card to every single person and you actually have to handwrite it out, by the fifth card, you just feel disingenuous.
yeah,
There's just something human about that. You just feel like, oh God, I'm just copying and pasting the same thing. And yet here's all this technology that basically does that. And we expect it to work. We expect that there's a huge ROI because what? It's more efficient. Well, yeah, sure. You spend less time, I guess. And in some organizations, time is definitely money. And sure, I guess you'd spend a little less time, but the ROI on making something personal, on making something relatable, and on actually understanding who that person is, literally empathy is a skill, is so valuable and has such a higher ROI than the time you're going to save by using automation tools or templates or something incredibly impersonal.
how do you learn when you do automation? I know a lot of
Mm.
software companies push and they give you metrics like it's a game of numbers, but
Yep.
how do you learn? If you're not doing the outreach, if you're not doing the recon yourself, how do you learn? I learn so much about my target audience by commenting. And you know what? They reward me with engagement
Mm-hmm.
and they reward me with meetings when it makes sense. If anybody listening right now, I encourage you to try this. I found out a new trick that I haven't told Morgan about, so he'll be caught in on the action too. I stopped using search or the sales navigator as much for my account list because they don't post anything useful. They do generic crap that goes nowhere and it's nothing you can comment on and it's nothing I care about because it's promo about their products and not even in a way that's meaningful.
Mm-hmm.
It's just feature.
Promo reel, reshare, no caption, no content. I see that a lot too. Yeah.
So what I started to do is I started to search terms that are signs and symptoms of sales gone wrong.
Hmm.
Spam sales, bad cold calls, anything in your industry that you can help fix. But instead of trying to fix it, you're just joining the conversation. And so sometimes I'll tease, like somebody was talking about they were putting out like a business development position and they're looking for a closer. I was like, okay, baby, coffee's on. Let's go. And just having fun with it. But
Mm-hmm.
looking and having those conversations, I can have hundreds of well, I try not to have hundreds, but I have about 40 or 50 conversations a day just through comments, and you learn a lot. But I can also now go back talking about profitable customers, and I can tell you who's wasting my time and who's approachable. Going back to our LinkedIn philosophy, if you say thank you for connecting and they don't respond to you, they don't want to talk.
Mm-mm.
So why are we going after unprofitable customers? Why are we going after people that don't want to deal with us? Why? Because we're going after the metrics and we're going after traditional methods that don't get results. And it's time to change, whether that's coming from senior leadership or whatever. It can start with you. And whose book was it? You just mentioned him too. Never Split the Difference, Chris Voss.
Oh, yes.
Do an accusation audit.
Mm-hmm.
And so what I do is I go and look at what would they accuse me of, but also what would I want to know about them that I would accuse them of being a great customer. And it allows you to have tease out of the conversation if there's somebody you want to work with. If you only had 20 minutes or less and you could only ask 3 questions, how would that change your approach to that meeting? And this is the type of stuff, the what ifs that I keep going through. And it's changing the entire way I look at what we do in sales, how it aligns with marketing, and how we can just do it better. We got a comment here, Tara.
Yeah, can you throw up Tara's comment on the screen? Because this is something I actually want to talk about. This is good.
Ooh.
Buyers don't want to be sold at. They expect vendors to add value when needed. Anything else is spam. So I think, I agree directionally. I would challenge the concept of vendors. This is just like my creative world thing. Maybe it's different in other industries. And maybe it is just a vendor relationship generally, but
it's just a vendor relationship.
Yeah.
So this is a good conversation to dive into. Open the soapbox. Here we go.
But what I wonder is if you approach the sale as a partnership instead of a vendorship. And this is an interesting way to reposition. In the creative world, this is incredibly beneficial as a creative and previously as a marketer. Like, you don't want to be a vendor as a marketer. You want to be a partner. And that means taking assumed risk. And most marketers are actually vendors. They're not partners. That means you take risk on the results. You let's go. Heck yeah. You really want to have a vested stake in the outcome, mostly because as a partner, instead of a vendor, you get access to deeper conversations and more strategic access to the company than you do as just a vendor. Now, if you're selling a per seat software platform, you're not going to be a partner, okay? Even and at an enterprise level, perhaps, and you become integral. I think there's a scale to some of this, but I would wonder what it would mean for businesses who are selling a complex B2B product, whatever that is, to approach the sale as a partner to somebody else's business, instead of thinking, oh, we have something to sell, we're a vendor, you should buy from us. And even just that subtle linguistic change, to me, changes the mindset around how you approach the sale, how you build the relationship, how you even market. Because if I was selling a complex product and I said, oh, I'm trying to be a partner to these folks, to me, that means their success is my success. And if I'm a vendor and I say, oh, I have something to sell to these people, even if I'm value driven, even when I'm adding value to their company, right? Basically, I'm saying, buy my thing so you can solve your problem. And then clean our hands. I make a lot of money. You hopefully make some money, and I'm out of there. And I think really grounding ourselves from a marketing approach, especially, and to me, this is like a big scale marketing approach, not a tactical marketing approach, but from like a brand value or business value approach, thinking of ourselves as partners to our other companies really repositions the way we market and sell and approach companies. That would be a way to kick this off, at least, Nick.
Pick me, my pick.
Yeah, go Nick.
How many of you guys go to the doctor and tell them what your problem is, and then don't allow them to do any type of diagnosis, and then tell them to give you medication? How often does that work? Why should we allow people to do that in our process? When we take orders, we are vendors. Mm-hmm. The problem is it opens the door for scope creep. Oh my goodness gracious. Can you fix my wording here?
Scope creep?
Yeah. And so they'll keep asking for more and more and more, and then they'll delay payment, and then they'll strong arm you. It There's a thing that happens when you become the expert, when you become the prescriber of best services. And part of it is trust. The other part is credibility. And it comes down to advantage. There's an advantage to having the relationship with you because you understand them better than anyone else. Your prescription is spot on, and it's built on pattern recognition that they don't have because they don't do it as much as you do. So when you're telling them what they should do, it is based on your knowledge and experience, not whatever they think is great. Because how many times as creatives have we done something based on somebody telling us something was wrong, only to find out, halfway through the process that they were out to lunch on what they thought the problem was. I see it in sales. I see it in marketing. I see it in ops. But if people aren't asking for our opinion and they're not seeking that out, they're seeking somebody to be a vendor, and you're setting yourself up for commodity pricing and basically the never-ending task list. And I don't wish that upon anyone.
No, and I think just to sort of reinforce what you said, one thing that I see in really successful companies when they think about the way this is expressed as a partnership is basically sort of a dual prong strategy. One, an account executive or a customer success manager, whoever's actually handling the back end of the deal, feels like an actual partner in the relationship and not just somebody who's trying to check in about, oh, do you like our software? Like that's not building a relationship. Like that's not partnership. That's just being a vendor.
I just wanted to follow up.
Yeah. Hey, just checking in. Just wanted to bump this email. Like that's not partnership. Okay. And the second prong, which aligns really closely, is about value provision, both on the front end and the back end. So I think about maybe Chili Piper is a really good example. Chili Piper is software that does automation for booking. That's pretty straightforward. That could be a vendor relationship. But on the front end, to your point about expertise, to your point about not being the commodity, to the point about having an advantage, they have all of these reasons why you need to not just use their software, but basically do the things that their software accomplishes, and also why they're the best choice. And all of that value is provided up front. How do you book better meetings? How do you handle that sales process? All of this sort of demand generation playbook in the marketing lingo is already provided to a customer perusing Chili Piper's site or like looking to buy that software. And then what I presume, I'm not a Chili Piper client here, but what I presume on the back end is if they really want to be that partner to a business, the way that they handle their clients and customers is through relationship management with their account executives or CSMs, and not just, hey, and I've gotten so many of these emails from softwares I've used before from supposed account executives, just checking in and it's automated 100%. How's it going? Do you like our software? Why won't you rate our software? Kind of thing. And that's, to me,
task
it's not
management. That's all that is. It's just purely task management.
Check, check, check. Oh, I need to follow up with this client. Oh, I need to check in on this. Oh, I need to get a review. And
you ever had somebody actually go and look at your account and then come to you and say, hey, looks like you haven't been using this feature, but based on like how you're running this would save you X amount. And you're like,
I dream of that.
What? I had an AE from
of
HubSpot that reached out to me, and it's like, it looks like you're trying to go into an ABM play, but you have everything kind of scattered. Did you know that we do that? And so I wrote back, I'm like, well, is it free? She's like, well, it's included in your package if that's okay.
Yeah.
What?
That's huge.
You took what, 30 seconds to go and take a look? I don't know how we got like it triggered a warning, but it was like, advantage. There's an advantage to you reaching out to me. There's an advantage to me getting to know you and building a relationship with you because you make me better.
Yeah.
But how many of us can say that in our sales process if we're driven by the wrong metrics and we don't go back to square one of knowing who you work best with?
Well, and to link that with the topic of today, those sorts of activities, let's say, strictly speaking, show up as costs on a quarterly or monthly profit and loss statement. Okay, it's somebody's salary who's doing that, or it's somebody's time who's actually putting in that effort. And the way that you can realize that those efforts are working is potentially looking at ARR and looking at annual contracts or client growth, retention, and growth over time. But ultimately, those activities, if you're really wired for the short term, for survival mode, for we got to hit all their metrics and exponential hockey stick growth or all the rest of it, you're probably not going to do that, because strictly, the time spent doing the research and looking at those things, or even setting up automation so that AEs or CSMs are triggered, there's a trigger or a notification that sends to them, hey, this person might be right person to reach out for this ABM service, or whatever else makes sense. All of that is strictly speaking a cost to the business. And what frustrates me to no end is that it's conceived of as a cost instead of an investment. Really, I mean, investments in the short term are costs, but there's an ROI over time, and the kind of return that company got off of just that one small interaction, because they took the time and they really serviced the customer as a partner instead of just saying, oh, you like our software kind of thing. That can transform relationships. And especially with even bigger clients, it can extremely or have an extreme difference in the long run as to how much they trust you and how large those contracts can be.
Makes me think of was it the chicken company in Denver? They screwed up the order.
Bird call. Heck yes. I was like, the chicken company.
Yeah,
yes, the chicken for life company. I'm a customer for life, because they did the right thing. They went above and beyond, and they did the right thing. They not only apologized for the mistake, but they provided additional value. Short-term cost, couple free meals, basically. Long-term payoff, because I'm going to continue, and I continue to buy plenty of bird call here in Denver.
And tell everyone about it.
And tell everyone about it. I'm the most loyal brand ambassador that has ever existed. I'm just somebody who just likes the company. But that's the rule of thumb, right? If somebody has a good experience on average, they're going to tell 2 or 3 people. But if they have a bad experience, they're going to tell 10 to 12 people. And that's just how we're wired. That's just like word of mouth marketing fundamentals. And so the reason you're doing the good experience is not out of the hopes that you're going to get 20 referrals off of that one customer. I'm very unique in that regard. I love talking about the brands that I love. But most people tell a couple folks or a couple people in business. And the way we sort of capture this into the B2B world is now this term dark social, that people are basically talking to each other in the background. What was your lurking in the darkness? That more or less they're lurking in the darkness, but talking with each other in back channels where they can't really, a company can't measure that. But all of your success, your success teams, your delivery, your sales management or relationship management on the back end with these customers that you are working with can help accelerate your profitability. And if it all goes out well, it can also help you identify other customers, lookalike audiences, that then you can turn your marketing efforts onto and your sales efforts onto to get them into your orbit. I feel like we've ranted pretty strong. Yes. So on this topic, so if there are other questions, make sure to drop them in the comments below. But I'm going to turn it back to Nick, because otherwise we can continue to rant on this, I think, all day.
We had a submitted question this week, didn't we?
I don't think so. No.
Not through the B2B Power Hour website?
No, I did not have a question. But if you want advanced agendas, you can go to b2bpowerhour.com and sign up, and we'll send them to you. So you can submit advanced questions, and we'll make sure to answer them during this time.
Does anyone have any?
One thing actually that just popped into my mind that I wanted to return to as people are submitting or answering any questions is how do you, as a salesperson and especially a sales trainer, think about the sort of the week by week cadence or almost goals salespeople should be looking for when they take this approach that is more relationship managed? So if we're throwing out the old metrics playbook and we're not trying to hit specific quotas, or we could, but they're probably going to be lower, what do you look for as saying, yes, I'm on the right path? Yes, I'm hitting this playbook right.
Very good question, Anton. Yes, Anton. Morgan was a busy beaver, and he also gave us a Spotify podcast
and Apple Podcasts too.
Sorry, back to your question.
Yes, sorry, the metrics.
One of the things that has served me the best since I changed this is 5 meaningful conversations a day. And meaningful is beyond superficial. It's like asking somebody, hey, how are you? And then walking away. Or saying, hey, how you feeling today? Hey, how have you been? And they pour their heart out to you. Which one's meaningful? Well, then all you got to do is keep tweaking your definition of meaningful And next thing you know, you're booking meetings because it compounds week by week. And so I track how many meaningful conversations I have about business. And so that I'm building those relationships. And then it could be who's watching right now. Like I've talked to you through comments or direct messages, and we met through LinkedIn. Like me and Morgan met through an Akimbo class. Like a little bit goes a long way. I also track my opportunity to win ratio, which I think is more beneficial, because how many opportunities do you open that are a potential deal versus how many you close? If it's too low, then it's one of two things. They're not good opportunities, so they weren't qualified properly, or you just need some work on your sales. And I got you.
You got them on that. That's for sure. What I like most about that on the opportunity to win ratio is that you're carefully curating who you're actually qualifying for your opportunities. Sales training is sales training, and everybody can become a better salesperson. I certainly can. And I think that there is not a lot of critical thought when it comes to saying, "Oh, this is an opportunity." Not just like what's the industry lingo? I hate industry lingo. What, SQO? Sales qualified opportunity?
There's a couple different ways of calling it, but yeah.
Anyways, what I think you're pointing to is that there is an act of judgment, not just something that's necessarily automated, but because you've identified your right ICP based on market research, based on actual conversations, and now you're doing lookalike audiences and you're reaching out to them, you're fairly confident that these are the right customers to go for. And then through the process, you begin to qualify those opportunities saying, yes, this is actually a potential deal. Are you thinking of an opportunity as something with like a 20% chance of win? Is it lower usually, or higher even? Okay, yeah, not lower. Definitely not lower.
5 to 1, 4 to 1 is where I want to start.
Okay, yeah.
If it's sub 5 to 1, there's big problems and it needs to be addressed quickly. 4 to 1, that's a good place to be, because now you can really start to optimize. And what I find is that when you get to this point, you can really up the experience and increase the word of mouth. So there's different opportunities, but you need to do an assessment. And honestly, if I had to tell you guys to do anything, it starts with knowing your customer. I know it's like we're beating a dead horse here, but if you can't identify profitable customers before you talk to them, and if you can't question them to determine if they really are profitable, BANT's not going to save you. Budget authority, needs, and timeline. Even with a medic, I do like medic though, because it's a way of building account, like organizing how you attack an account and determining value. I would use that one. I still do. So
that's good. That's great. Nick, I think we've covered a lot of ground this morning. Thank you. I think not only did I learn a lot, but based on the comments, I think we hit some good topics today.
I want to thank everyone for joining us. I want to thank you for your questions and your comments and your continued support. Really appreciate the direct messages that come after every show and the questions that you reach out and that you trust us to go and ask. That's very much appreciated. I want to go and throw it out there that Morgan took these and turned it into a podcast for us, because I like when I watch something longer, I like to go and put in the earbuds and go for a walk, or if I have to clean the house. But
I'm a big podcast cleaning kind of guy, definitely the same. So yeah, you can go to b2bpowerhour.com. There's links to both Apple Podcasts and Spotify. I believe we're also on Google Podcasts. And if you're like me and care about your privacy, you can always use Overcast, and we're on Overcast as well. So you can also sign up to receive advanced agendas. I feel like we have an actual outro house cleaning item. There's a lot of things we can do now at the end of our show, Nick. I'm excited.
You know what I'm excited for?
Oh, yeah.
It's Morgan's week to go and choose the topic.
Oh,
so
boy.
If you guys want to tease him or see if you can get it out of him.
Yeah, send me a DM
on LinkedIn.
See if you can tease me, or if you have ideas of things that we should really cover, I'd be more than happy to chat. So thank you again, everybody. Happy Friday. And this has been B2B Power Hour.
B2B Power Hour. Thanks, everyone. Bye. That was way off.